Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink. Episode 37 is brought to you by our incredible local friends in Waggle Golf, 9 Mile Brewing, and the officially unofficial craft beer of the Minnesota Wild. That's right, Barrel Theory Beer Company. With me as always, Joe Smith of The Athletic, bringing you all the insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gophers hockey. Joe, you just survived the first bachelor weekend since parenthood, and you don't look too disheveled at all. You're in okay shape.
I didn't abuse it, right? Not like it wasn't a bachelor party per se, but it was my first weekend. Our wife took our baby to her mother's house for the weekend and saw some friends. So I got to do, aside from seeing friends, some house stuff and take care of things that would be difficult to do with the relative newborn. So it's when you know how life changes a lot, right? When the baby is born and it kind of doesn't stop for forever, but a couple of days where you can sleep until 8:30 or so, stay up later and watch some TV or just catch up with people out and about. It was good, but definitely the feeling of picking up at the airport and seeing at the gates today, definitely happy to be back together again.
That is how you kind of judge it though, right? Like if you miss them like too much where like it's like day 2 and you're like checking in every like 20 minutes, that's a problem. But also if you show up to pick them up at the airport, you're like, oh shit, they're back. Also a problem. So sounds like you struck the balance. What was the binge this weekend? Like, was there a series that you cranked out, or was it more just like watched a bunch of sports and went out and had fun?
Yeah, I watched obviously a couple of World Series games, and like the first one, of course, first couple of games were really good in LA. So I watched those and kind of rewatched a little the show Scandal from Netflix. I had seen it before, like years ago, and it's kind of one of those shows you can turn on and turn off if you had seen it before and stuff. So not a huge like amount of watching it the whole week, but most of the time was kind of just getting outside. I took our dog, since he is now the second son in our family, took him to like some dog parks and longer walks and things since he's been neglected for a little bit. So got a chance to be outside a lot other than doing some house things, raking, which apparently isn't a never ending chore.
Joe, the world of raking, not a great one.
No, it's like it gets done and all of a sudden it comes back, and then the next day one tree just dumps everything on it. So you're like, all right, it's good for the grass, right? Let's let it go.
Are you a Parks and Rec fan?
I've only watched it a few times, so I wouldn't be able to get references, but
fair. Then you probably wouldn't get the reference. But for anyone listening who is Andy, who is like, the village idiot on the show, they're asking him a bunch of like questions, and he just like keeps on giving the most like bizarre answers. And then he starts asking questions, and one of them is like, so guys, like, do you have the same thing where like whenever you wipe, it's literally like you just get like a brown marker and just keep on writing on the on the toilet paper? And it's like that is leaf raking in Minnesota to a T.
You gotta wait until all the trees are gone, right? So, or you gotta weigh out what your neighbors' yards look like and see how bad yours looks comparatively before you decide.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, we got a packed show for you guys here today. Had Russo jump on with us on Thursday, cover some more broad, high-level topics about the Wild. So we will be getting into some of the more current things since that conversation. Talk a little Gopher hockey, and of course, as always, we have to talk some hot takes brought to you by Barrel Theory. Open up here, Joe. The Gophers kind of torched the Tommies. Clearly, they thought a little bit about what happened last year with that tight game at the X and came out and punished them. I think my favorite bit going right now online is that Motzko keeps listing the Kurth, Clark, Wood line as the fourth line on the depth chart.
Yeah, and again, like all these sports are full of cliches and stuff like that. And like, but I used to hate that shit when like, John Cooper, whoever else would be like, this is not my fourth line, or this is, like the fourth first line, or whatever you want to call it. Like everyone has lines for a reason. You can't play everybody the same amount of minutes every game. Like it's not a negative to this person that they play on this line or third line. We're not denigrating them or making them feel like they're less this or that, but don't insult the intelligence, right? Just be like, it's the fourth line, and like the Wood line is not the fourth line in terms of amount of minutes that they play. But hey, it's gamesmanship. If it's how it gives the media a little bit of a chuckle and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't think that those guys go into the day and they're like, well, we're in the fourth line, guys. Let's kind of just muck it up, So
yeah, and they are still rolling. Like Kurth and Wood, tops of NCAA hockey in scoring so far. And, we can talk about schedule and certainly want to see them continue it once they start playing some better competition, but incredible start. You can't possibly be disappointed. And I'm telling you, Joe, like when they're on, I see plenty of times where they are still not on the same page at all. And to think like come Christmas, this line could be even better is awesome. And I think the highlight of the post-game presser on Friday night, Dylan Laux asks Wood about the goal he scored, where I don't know if you saw the goal, Joe, but oh my goodness, did he tuck that through like zero space to put it under the bar? And he asked him, he's like, hey, like what were you seeing there? Because from our angle, it didn't look like there was much to shoot at. And all he said was, I saw enough.
Yeah.
That's all he had said. And
typical goal scorers reply, like, I saw enough. The best goal scorers shoot to score. They don't just, whatever. So I think that's perfectly indicative of that. And it doesn't matter if he's a man of few words, right?
Yeah.
Long as they're very good ones. So, but yeah, I think like to see those guys, especially as they go against better competition and, the whole thing, the schedule will come up and it'll be better teams, but it's good to have that momentum early on and the feel for each other and kind of the confidence boost for each guy. So especially for the newer guys that are coming in, like the Woods first experience. So yeah, I think the Tommies got a little bit hurt this weekend.
Yeah, especially at the hand of a guy named Brody Lamb, who apparently has scored like half of his collegiate goals against St. Thomas and didn't stop this weekend. Got 4, got a hat trick on Saturday, and the Gophers posted a great picture of him just staring down the St. Thomas fan base. That was great. But the guy that really, Joe, like we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the season, and I've been posting about it a lot on Twitter. Sam Rinzel's here. Like, this is a guy who it's no shock that he was going to have a good year and that he's like one of the top defensemen for the Gophers, but like this guy is off to a crazy start. And like the whole blue line looks great and is putting up a lot of points, but Sam Rinzel looks different.
Absolutely. And I think we've talked about this before about the transition from the segue from the one group of elite defensemen that they had a couple of years ago with the Fabers and the Johnsons and the Combs, and like all of a sudden you're moving to the next wave of guys that are getting their chance to, along with the veteran, Kester and stuff like that. But I think overall, seeing those guys step through and getting those major roles and just doing it kind of seamlessly is really impressive to me.
And Motzko said, like, obviously he told us coming in that he was really high on this blue line, but like immediately the one guy who's not really getting on the score sheet in Luke Middlestead, he's like, Luke's been one of our best defensemen. The points are going to come. And I don't really care if he gets any points.
Yeah.
The one guy that I think we're all kind of sitting and waiting, and it's going to kind of be what tips the scales for whether the Gophers are the front runner or they're one of the teams in the mix. When is Jimmy Snuggerud really going to hit the scene? Because I'm seeing it, Joe, like every game he has maybe like once or twice a period where like, oh, there's Jimmy. Like he did something. outside of that, like, he's kind of been invisible to me. And hands down, like, he is the most talented player on the team. We just need him to, whether it's finding the right chemistry or just getting his feel. Maybe it just takes playing against better competition for him to rise to the occasion. I'm not sure, but if Jimmy Snuggerud gets back to Jimmy Snuggerud ways, holy crap, is this team scary.
And absolutely he'll get there. I think it was a very challenging end of the season for him. Like, he wasn't happy with how the season went. Emotional summer, deciding to come back. And he felt good about it. And he talked to both of us, or talked to me about it too, just why he came back and what was important to him. And I can definitely sense that a player like that would put a pressure on himself, deciding to come back and saying, okay, came back for a reason. I knew I had some things in my game that need to be more mature. How can I do that? But what do you judge a guy like him on? A lot of times is goal scoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not scoring, the points aren't there. All of a sudden, is he in a slump? Is he doing this? And so I think people with the Blues or other, NHL people know that this guy's got an elite NHL level shot. They know he's got the goal scoring ability. But I would imagine if you ask Bob Motzko, obviously that's important to him too. But him and to Jimmy, it's other areas of his game of making sure he's more complete. And if he's not affecting the game at all, then it could be a problem. Or if he's negative defensively, like he's not pulling his weight there. But I think if he can round out his game in certain areas, and then the scoring is going to come, and it can come in bunches, right? Once he gets one, he can get a bunch. So I'm not worried about him overall as a scorer, but I think for this year, for him, it probably most likely his last year in college hockey is getting all other parts of his game more mature. That was his focus. And, they have the luxury of being early in the season. They'll be in the top 4 the whole entire year. I think everybody thinks that's going to happen. So plenty of time for him to break out.
Absolutely. And the one thing we've got to look forward to this coming weekend, again, not the greatest competition, Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
We get to see Souliere face his old team.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you got to have circled on the calendar. And the goalies, again, like, both have been on their game. Like, so far, I don't have any major concerns with either of them. Certainly something that we're going to see come to fruition throughout the season, but I'm not sure where I sit right now for who's going to end up being Bob's one. If I, gun to my head right now, Souliere has the lead at the moment, but I think with Airy being a guy who has kind of ridden the pine for the last couple of years, I'm not really gonna judge him until we get to January, right? Like, I want to see him get more games under his belt, see how he elevates, and really just see, can he rise to the occasion and can he get comfortable? Because Souliere's done it. Like, he's played the games, and now he's doing it behind a much better team than he's done in the past. Airy, he's kind of the high ceiling, low floor guy, whereas Souliere, I think he kind of is what we're seeing, which isn't a bad thing, but stay tuned. We'll see where that goes.
Get them both some games, get to the quarters, maybe a part of the season. One will separate from the pack, or one will grab the net and do it. So I wouldn't be concerned about that either. I think just giving them both a chance to show what they can do. And I know obviously it's better to have the number one that just has the net overall, but to get them both experience and see them push each other too, to get to that point, can't hurt going into the league season.
Yeah, and I'm good with them going with it most of the year. Obviously at the end of the year, you kind of got to decide, but for now, let it ride. We'll see where it goes. All right, before we get into some wild talk, quick word from one of our partners, 9 Mile Brewing. Joe, this Friday, November 1st, is Minnesota Pint Day, where many of your favorite local craft breweries will be releasing a special Minnesota Pint Day glass, along with a golden ale to commemorate craft brewing in Minnesota. One of our favorite local tap rooms here, especially for those of you in the South Metro, 9 Mile Brewing, will be opening early at 11 a.m. this Friday for this very special event. So whether you're on a half day Fridays like my wife, need to blow off some steam from this past week over a good happy hour, or you're on the job market, got nothing else to do, get out there, but make sure you drop by their tap room in Bloomington to get your limited edition pint glass. That's right, Minnesota Pint Day glass, and sip on a delicious golden ale. Or, if you're like Joe and I and want an IPA, crush their double current obsession, one of my personal favorites. Or less for you, Joe, more for me, stout game, Banoffee Pie Double Stout. I don't know how much longer that one's going to be on tap, so definitely get out there and try it out. All right, Joe, Minnesota Wild. We've had plenty of things happen since we talked last week. Tampa and Philly, very, very different looking games.
Oh, absolutely. And then obviously the win in Pittsburgh tonight. So they wrapped up the road trip with one regulation loss all season so far, which is pretty incredible considering what the schedule looked like to start the season, how they started the last couple of years, injuries, having Spurgeon out up until Tuesday's game in Pittsburgh. So a lot of positives to kind of spread around with them. We talked about that last week, and we talked with Mike Russo, our guest here for this week's podcast, about the goaltending, Gustafsson and obviously Fleury tonight. All the lines contributing tonight. Gaudreau with 2 goals. Lauko, their line had a really good big goal. They came back from a 2-0 deficit to win that game in Pittsburgh on Marc-Andre Fleury night. And again, Gustafsson has stole the show overall this season, but Fleury, this was his night. They knew on the calendar going in. His last start in Pittsburgh, where he won 3 Stanley Cups, was the face of the franchise before Sidney Crosby came around. Big part of the core 4, Fantastic 5, whatever you want to call them, of that group. And I'm sure you saw it too, Scott, but end of the game, Penguins are a part of a rough season. The Wild win that game, and all the Wild players stay on the ice for a final lap or 2 for Fleury. The fans are still there chanting for him, and big ovation. He goes over to the Penguins bench, and there's Crosby and Letang, said, "Enjoy your lap." And as much as Fleury didn't want a farewell tour or attention on him, it's going to be on him this season. It's just a matter of that. And especially in buildings like this in Montreal, this is hit really special for him. It's hit emotional for him. His family's in the stands, his wife and his kids and his mom. But there will be ups and downs in the season. There's ups and downs at the start of the season. But I think these are nights like this where you appreciate somebody's talent, their character, and their overall personality and their impact on a franchise. 2 nights in a row. Stamkos one night, Fleury one night. Like, they're both, similar in some ways, but like those names will be in the those jerseys will be up in the rafters, and those names will be kind of, symbolic with those franchise forever. And so I'm happy that Marc-Andre Fleury got that fitting. He wanted to win, which will make him in a better mood, but like overall to have that ovation from the crowd, who's obviously going through a tough season now, was pretty special.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, like, I know we've got some listeners who are like devout followers of everything NHL. So maybe you're aware, but I know there's some fans that probably don't really know the full backstory and lore of Fleury leaving Pittsburgh, right? They're in their second year going for the back-to-back, which hasn't been done in quite some time. And Matt Murray's taking the net, right? Like, Marc-Andre Fleury is playing backup. We've got the Vegas expansion draft looming, and they kind of went to Fleury and said, "Hey, like, if you want to be starter, like, we can move you, but like, we're not going to be able to keep you past this year because we're not going to expose, Matt Murray to be taken in expansion." And Fleury said, like, "Keep me here. I want to be here for this ride. I want to be part of this team. I want to go for back-to-back, and I will waive my no move protection that kicks in and let them select me." And like, that's a big deal, not only in just the gesture, but how it played out. He stood on his head in a second round series, shocker, against the Washington Capitals. I don't know if that happened many times over the course of that rivalry, but he is the reason that they won that series. And Murray came back in, ended up finishing the series, or finishing the playoffs to win the cup. But they do not win in 2017 if Marc-Andre Fleury doesn't make that big move. And it just speaks so much to who he is, how much he cares about that team, the camaraderie with the boys. And I mean, everyone knows what's happened from there with the move to Vegas, to Chicago, to here. But I don't know. He's a guy that obviously had like great patches, also some dark stretches, especially when it comes to playoff hockey in Pittsburgh. Fans don't remember anymore. Like he is loved across the board by the fans. And to be honest, more than half of them wanted him to stay and wanted Murray gone. So if that tells you anything.
Well, it's easy 2020 hindsight, right? And at that time you couldn't keep both goalies, and and Fleury went to them and wanted to be exposed to go to Vegas where he get a chance to play. He wasn't ready at that point. He wasn't then where he is now, where he's okay maybe playing less games or being in a backup role. He wasn't ready back then, and he was certainly deserving of a chance to be a starter, and he got that in Vegas. But yeah, there's no question that you talk to Rick Tocchet, you talk to Mike Sullivan, and they don't win that cup without Fleury that year. Not only him performing the playoffs, but being able to support Matt Murray as a young goaltender, an enviable position of taking over for a legend in the crease and winning the cup, but he got that support from him. So there's still probably a little bit of a bitter feelings, I think, from Fleury in terms of not angry, but I think he wanted to stay there. Like he would love to have been the guy in the net, but you have to make decisions. And I think if you were turn back the clock if you're any manager, you decide at that point, who do you take over? A 23-year-old goalie who's won back-to-back cups, or Fleury?
Back-to-back rookie cups.
Yeah. We know how it turned out, and the fact that it's Achilles' heel now for the Penguins, the goaltending and Jari's and the minors,
Jerry was not great thing.
Hurt you for now, but I'm just glad he had that night. Happy for him and his family that they had to experience that, and for the Wild to pull out a win made it a lot easier, I'm sure, for him to celebrate it.
I just can't wait until tomorrow or I guess today, as people listen, when we find out what he did to, I don't know how many poor individuals in that Pittsburgh organization, that he did some kind of prank on his way out the door. He had to have. He can't help himself.
Well, I think, didn't they show him video, like Max Talbot pranked him, taped all this up together? Yeah. I mean, there'll be either one way or the other. Either he'll get pranked or he'll prank somebody else. But yeah, it's, to end the road trip in that emotional way, and the Wild are in a really good position now in the standings, and it's still a long way to go, 1/8 of the way through the season, but a lot of things to be encouraged about if you're a Minnesota Wild fan.
Absolutely. And I gotta say, they put in all of the great pranks in that tribute video. None will ever be better for me than Room 622. Like that one, back when it happened, that's as close as I got to gut laughing over social media content. It was so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was one. I remember I did a full story last year on all of his pranks and talked to him and all the victims behind the scenes of all of his best pranks. And that was just, to have the whole entire room out in the hallway is legit. But the other one I thought was awesome was the hanging teammates' jersey up in the rafters of practice, like that, stuff like that. It's it's one thing to be cliche and prank, but another thing to have all these creative things over 20 years in a career where you don't repeat yourself and stuff. So definitely be part of the lore there for him.
Absolutely. You mentioned though, Lauko and Freddy looked great on those goals, no question, but they've both been playing really well too. Tell you what, the Penguins have had bad goaltending this year, no question. Most of those goals weren't on the goalie. Those were just really good shots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you do about those.
I don't know either. And I think what's interesting to me, they obviously moved Freddy up to the third line, right?
Yeah.
With Hartman being out and stuff, and he's just been terrific. That people were worried about Freddy Gaudreau going to the season, and for good reason, because the struggles of last year. But where do you put Hartman when he comes back now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know what fans will say.
Yeah.
And that is move Trennan. because, oh my gosh, are people like not willing to give him a second to breathe? And like, what are we at now? Is it 9 games into the season?
9 games, yeah.
Like, that's an okay like sample size, but like, give him a minute. Like, let's get. I guess I don't even know what a good bar is to set, but it's not like he's been bad. He just hasn't like done anything noticeable, which I don't think that's really what you brought him in for.
You didn't, even though it's like something where you bring in somebody and you sign him to a long-term contract, right? And so he's not going to be a guy that lights the score sheet up, but you also want bigger impact for a guy that was your Bane free agent acquisition, right? So, but I think those guys, you need to give them more time. And if we're talking about this still in December, or whatever like that, then you start a little worried more. But as long as he's affecting game in other areas, I think John Hines will be happy.
Yeah. Well, then we got to talk about the two like weird scenarios that transpired, I guess. We can stick with recency here just with the game tonight. What'd you make of the whole sequence that led to the Faber fight?
Oh man, if you would have told me who the first fighting major would be this season, would not have guessed Brock Faber. But
he would have been like bottom 5 on my list.
Bottom 5, like he could. I mean, he's tough.
I'm not saying he can't. I just didn't think that he would be the one to do it.
Yeah. So obviously something has to tick you off for that to happen, and I think the Wild probably wouldn't want him to fight just to want to risk him getting injured. But hey, I love the little spunk out of him, so I give him credit for it.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen Brock Faber see red. Like he was very upset with Crosby. It wasn't just like, oh, let's go after Crosby because he's Crosby. It was like, no, I want to hurt you.
Yeah.
It's good to see a little bit of that FU in his game. It's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
What about the whole debacle that landed Zuccarello with the only penalty against the Flyers?
Yeah, like, what the replay show on that one? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's
bizarre
overall.
The Foligno comments after the game about Hathaway. We have engaged Marcus Foligno now. He's locked in.
No, like, and again, he's going to defend guy after guys like that who go after their top player with cheap shots. So. Like, what do you say? Like, has to stay relevant in the league somehow. I think was his comment or something like that. But having guys like Foligno back in the lineups would be so good for them to keep other guys accountable this season, and you have to be able to do that on the ice versus tripping afterwards. But overall, he's a guy who can back it up. He can back up his talk, walking the walk there if they want to get in a fight.
For sure. Anything else we need to hit on top of what we're about to kick it over to with Russo?
Yeah, well, just the footnote that Jared Spurgeon did return.
He did return.
The lineup. He had been sent back from the road trip, just kind of managing and dealing with coming off this double surgery in the spring, the back and hip, and then they needed to attend to some things. But he came back and he practiced really well the other day, and he played pretty well, I thought, tonight. So that's a very positive sign for the Wild to have him back, and maybe he might need some maintenance days as the season goes along, coming off that surgeries. But to have him back, I didn't expect him back in the lineup for this game. I thought maybe back for the home games this week. But to get him and kind of really thickens the blue line there and moves guys around. I think you saw Chisholm scratched with Merrill and Bogosian there. So I think that was probably the biggest positive aside from the Fleury moment was having Spurgeon come back.
That is for sure, man. I still want to see Chisholm get a little bit more chance, but hey, Merrill's played well. Like, I get it. It's just, we'll see, I guess.
We'll see. And Russo is great. Big picture topics, Marco Rossi, the whole start of the team overall. It's the goalie situation that went from 3 goalies to 1 goalie to, I guess, 2 goalies now with Fleury getting in there. So I think big thanks to Mike Russo for joining us on this marathon road trip and wrapping it up and setting our stage for end of October going into November.
There we go. Let's kick it over to him. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Weigel Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it, that makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order.
Here we are with my colleague and good friend, Michael Russo of The Athletic, embarking on a 15,000-day road trip early in the season through some of my favorite places, including Tampa Bay as of right now. The Wild are a wagon officially, haven't trailed in any game as of the start of this podcast. So Mike, just, you wrote the other day about how this is just feels like a different feel to this group, the start of the season than the previous two. And we covered those last 2 years where the Stars really killed them basically toward the end of the year. What feels different, the most different about this group watching them game to game?
Yeah, it was funny because I wrote that column and immediately, the skeptics, whether it was in the comment section of the article or Twitter, wrote me back and different feel. They've beaten Columbus twice and, and things, and, St. Louis and things like that. But, sometimes when you're around the team, you really do get a feel of not just what's going on the ice, but what's going on off the ice. And so I, took a risk of writing that before they were going to playing the defending Stanley Cup champs, knowing that obviously huge tests coming up, but everything around this team right now is very different. And so far, again, going into tonight's game against Tampa, where Filip Gustavsson isn't going to be in net. So right away, it could have a different feel with two goalies in Fleury and Vasilevsky, who have so far not been great. Obviously Vasilevsky playing a lot more than Fleury so far this year. You just get the sense that they're better equipped to handle the adversity of the start of the season. And last year, the injuries just killed them very early. But because they're getting great goaltending right now, and because they just seem to be so much in tune defensively, you just have a feeling that this is so much more sustainable. So again, coming into Lightning game, they haven't had a deficit all year. They are 3-0-1 without Spurgeon. They're 2-0 without Hartman. They're 1-0 without Johansson. They're 1-0-1 without Eriksson Ek. And it just feels like right now there's different guys being able to be plugged into the lineup. And because Gustafsson has been great, and because Kaprizov and Zuccarello have been sensational, and Boldy's playing well, and Rossi's playing well, it just feels like right now, there's the ability with a lot of season left to be really, really good. And what I loved about last game is it just, I didn't really write about it in my gamer, but it just wasn't Kaprizov and Zuccarello last game. Like that third line with Trenin and Huzadinov and Foligno were excellent against Florida. And they got some high-end players even without Barkov, and those guys could do nothing against that line on the ice.
Well, it's interesting too. Like I think they talked a lot last year, Foligno and Hartman, about them, the resilience, a lot kind of be more fragile in-game situations and not being, Hartman called them, they were too easy to play against and stuff like that. And that's where I think I've noticed a lot on TV is kind of just watching them handling in-game adversity, not just the injuries, but just kind of the ebbs and flows. And of course, getting key saves helps you be a little bit tougher in those situations too. But
yeah, and as Gus said, he's made some incredible saves. Like he stole them that point in Winnipeg. Let's be honest. Not that Winnipeg, but even in that game where the Wild didn't have it and looked fatigued from playing the night before, Winnipeg didn't have a ton of chances, and they weren't very good either. And that's in large part because of the work ethic that the Wild are showing. So, again, a lot of season left. In a week we could look at this and sound foolish. But right now, as long as guys like Kaprizov and Gustafsson continue to play really well, you just feel like this team has the ability to really, in a weird division this year that so far has been a little upside down. With Nashville and Colorado not getting off to great starts, it looks like that they have definitely an ability to make the playoffs. And I think that you and I both agreed, as bad as last year was, Joe, that if they were healthy last year and if they got good goaltending, that they were 100% a playoff team. And right now they're getting incredible goaltending. Like I'm looking at Gus and thinking that he's playing better than we saw him 2 years ago. And I just think that if that continues, this team has the ability to really, make some hay in this division and conference.
Oh, and it's funny, after the last time you came on with us, the biggest question mark and concern going in was the 3 goalie rotation. Now it's a 1 goalie rotation, but like tonight against a team like Tampa that's firing on all cylinders, you have concerns around the potential of Marc-Andre Fleury, going a week or two in between starts throughout the season if Gus keeps carrying it.
Well, and that's why he has to start tonight in John Hines' mind and Freddie Shabbat's mind, is because he is going to get that game in Pittsburgh in a couple of days. And you really, it's next Tuesday. And if he starts that game, which we know he is, it would be like 3 weeks without a start. And so this is almost like a tune-up game to not make him look like a fool in Pittsburgh. And so, look, you can't ride just one goalie. Luckily, their schedule hasn't been overly well. Like for me, I think it's really tempting to come back with Gus today. But I get it too. But, if all of a sudden they are trailing tonight and things go upside down, I think that obviously there's going to be a lot of people questioning this decision. The thing is that it's not like, Wallstedt's playing really well, that this 3 goalie system, that he should be on this team playing over Fleury. I mean, Gus is, Wally has not been good right now in Iowa. He's 0-3. He's bleeding goals. Last night they tie the game up 2-2. He immediately gives up another goal. He has got to get his, together down in Iowa, or they've just got to ride Gus right now. And this is sort of going to be a non-issue. But if Flower struggles, they're going to really need a Wallstedt to play really well here, because look, this is a business. It's about winning. It's nothing personal. And if Flower is not better than he was, at least, and not that I thought he was bad against Seattle, but I think if Gus starts that game, the Wild are probably unbeaten right now. He's just got to at 39 years old really get into some traction here and winning them games, and that's the most important part of having a backup.
And think with Wallstedt too, and like I haven't talked to him yet about this, but I wonder mentally how much it took from him when he thought he'd be on the team or in this 3 goalie rotation. They sent him down in for good reason because of injuries, but you kind of have to land back in AHL before you can kind of, get back onto your game. And I wonder if it's taken a little bit of that. They told him to be in Minnesota, get a place in Minnesota and be there. And now he's there for who knows how long. But
no doubt. He's a human being, and I'm sure he's dealing with some of that, but he's also a professional. And right now he's put himself in a position where I don't think you could put him back on the team. Like, he's got to get his act together down there and stop pucks and be better, because this was supposed to be a really good Iowa team and they don't even have a victory yet. And so, and so that's another issue that we could figure out too. I mean, that they are going to have to figure out what's going on with Iowa right now. But, to your point, Joe, you and I have been writing all summer that it was nonsensical to have a 3 goalie rotation. And thankfully right now, I bet Bill Guerin is thinking his lucky stars that 31 other GMs didn't bite on him trading Philip Gustafson, or they'd be in real trouble right now. Gus has been excellent, and I don't think he should trade him right now. And now they got to get Wally's game in order here. But for a team that has still some major cap pain and would need Wallstedt's cap space to be able to afford other players in case of short-term injuries, because IR, you don't gain any cap space. It just never seemed like this was going to work. And we saw early on in the season that, they had to send Wallstedt down just to have Damon Hunt play in St. Louis because they couldn't afford him. So I do think that, I don't exactly know if this was the most well thought out plan by the Wild. Just based on their cap space, that if you were going to have one of your 23 guys be a 3rd goalie, you just knew at some point, if they had small little injuries like Spurgeon not being long enough to put on LTI or IR, or Johansson being a minor injury, that eventually to afford other guys, you're going to have to only send either Wallstedt or Ogren down, because they're the only 2 guys that really don't require waivers that you would even consider sending down.
For sure. And real quick, just because who knows when you'll get back to Tampa? Do you have like a specific cigar bourbon already picked out for your next stop here today to the Diamond Crown Cigar Lounge?
No, I Joe was covering the Lightning for the Athletic in the Eastern Conference Final, and I said to him that, hey, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go watch a game from the Cigar Lounge and do a feature on it. And left Joe and Pierre LeBrun all alone, and Peter Ba, and I just, somebody had to do it. And Joe for some reason, all these years covering the Lightning, never thought of watching a game from in there. So I'm like, I'll do it. So it's been pretty good. I'm staring right now at a incredible bay of water with yachts on it, where there used to be Stanley Cup parades and things like that. Every time I look out this window, I'm just amazed that Joe left this place for Minnesota. I take you on a tour of my 1,500 square foot suite here, but I don't want to get winded.
That wasn't part of your recruiting pitch to bring me to Minnesota.
No,
that was not part of the.
So when the Star Tribune recruited me to come to Minnesota in 2005, they flew me first class, put me up in a suite at the Marquette Hotel, and it was the best weather ever. I accept the job. I fly back to take my drug test because I had to take it like right away for some reason. They flew me middle seat, the smallest room maybe I've ever had in my life, and it rained the entire time I was in Minnesota. And this to me feels like sort of what I did to you. So.
Yeah, I'll be seeing a certain show in a few hours, so I know you'll. Yeah,
that's true.
Wishing you
better send me. You better send me live videos of every song. I want like live streaming. So. Not just Trample, by the way. I don't know if everybody knows
Brothers.
Avett Brothers fan I am. Like I've gotten to hang out with those guys because they have a great relationship with Trampled, and Avett used to open for Trampled, and now it's kind of cool that they're sort of flipping it around here in sort of a co-headline situation. But there's nothing like a Trampled by Turtles home show, and for them to be at XL Energy Center, it's got to be an incredible thrill for them. So I expect some streams to be sent my way tonight.
One of the more interesting questions, I think, for the mailbag you did, the first part of it, was about Marco Rossi. And obviously he started the season really well. And it begged the question of, I know it's early, but like, does him playing well, continue to play well this season, give the Wild any more motivation to try to have contract talks with his agent, Ian Pulver, which he hasn't, at least up to this date, done so? Do you think?
Did I lose you guys or no?
Yeah.
Okay. It would for me. But I don't know how much has changed here, because like if it were me and I drafted and developed a player like this, I wouldn't want to give him up at this age. The Wild, I've covered this league for 20 years. They don't draft centers and develop them into quality players besides Koivu and Eriksson Ek. It just has never happened. And now you got this guy that looks to be like a really quality player. And his price is only going up the longer you wait. But I don't know how much has changed because, again, one big reason why I think that they haven't committed to him is because they know Yurov's coming. And I think there is sort of an edict next summer to go out and get some free agents. And if you're going out and pursuing, let's just say it's Brock Besser, that's fine. He's a right wing. I get that doesn't affect Rossi. But let's just say they go after a center like a Brock Nelson or somebody like that. He's got to play somewhere. And there's also only so much power play time around too. So again, if they are just assuming that Yurov is going to be a future number 1 or 2 center here, and that Eriksson Ek is going to be a number 1 or 2 center here, if they don't look at Rossi as being a third line guy here, and I don't think that's fair to Rossi, I just don't know if it changes that much. And the longer they wait, the more expensive it gets. So I still have my doubts on whether or not they have interest in re-signing him, but it's up to him now to continue to put them in a position. Like the one thing I would say is that Yurov is still a figment of our imagination. They haven't got him signed yet. We don't know how it's going to translate to the NHL. They obviously watch him a lot more than me, but he's also a guy that you could play at the wing too. And I just think when you have a guy like this, especially like if I were the Wild, I'd go right now and at least try to get a bridge deal done, like a Cole Perfetti bridge deal. And then what it does is it buys you a couple more years at a quality price. So then at least you get Yurov here and you see what you have in him. And then if you have a real stud, then you have now a quality Rossi that you could trade at a really reasonable price. So I just think that if you can get him done on some sort of reasonable contract, even if it's a 4 or 5 year deal in the $4 or $5 million range, that is a tradable contract if he continues to ascend. And so I just don't know right now, why it makes sense to move them. And so I'm not saying that they are. I haven't talked to Bill Guerin about this, but I just still think that the biggest reason why we know they haven't committed to him is because of all these other factors of going out and spending money on free agents and Yurov. And still, like if it were me, I'd rather have a 23-year-old Rossi rather than going out and spending $6 or $7 million on a 30-year-old or a 31-year-old center. That's just me. I think the world of Rossi. I think he's done everything this organization has asked of him, and I think that should deserve some payback from them. And I just think that he's gotten better from a strength standpoint. He's gotten better from a skating standpoint, and he's got, despite his size, courage like very few undersized players have in this league. I mean, if you look at NHL Edge during last year's 21 goal season and so far this year, where does he get his shots from? Where does he get his goals from? They're always from high danger net front areas. He's an extremely smart player, and I just think that I think it behooves them to make that call now to Ian Pulver and try to get him done.
Yeah,
this seems like a perfect analysis to run December 15th when Joe comes back.
We'll see what happens in the next month and a half.
Diluted thoughts and put them into something sensible, Joe.
I will take care of the mailbag on December 15th, so I'll take care of that one. Speaking of the trade market and stuff, I know one of the questions too was regarding a Jared Spurgeon and like how long he might be out, and when do you start to wonder if there's going to go on the market to try to find somebody to replace him if you think he's gone. Now, obviously, you reported I think today that he's going to be skating in Philadelphia, maybe joining the team there, and so but we don't know if this will be an ongoing thing throughout the course of the year, right? Like whether this is a nagging thing or could be longer.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's coming to Pennsylvania to practice on Friday and then practice again on Monday. I don't think he'll play either game. I think it's just continuing his rehab with the team. Clearly, for him to go, whatever he was dealing with is gone. So then this is a non-issue. There is nothing the Wild can do. They can't go out right now, and trade for Rasmus Anderson or anybody like that. The only way that you could go out and replace a Jared Spurgeon is by putting him on LTIR, and clearly they're not near that point. So if this becomes a long-term issue, they're going to need a right shot defenseman at some point. If he is back in the lineup, this is a totally non-issue. And again, if you're a Wild fan that keeps on saying, well, just dump Spurgeon, get rid of Spurgeon, trade Spurgeon. He's a 34-year-old coming off back and hip season-ending surgery, is that 2 games into his season was dealing with some sort of discomfort again. That makes $7.5 million a year with 3 more years left on his deal. Teams are not lining up to trade for that. So the only way that you could replace Jared Spurgeon is an LTIR situation, and this is not a thing they could do right now. So it's a non-issue.
And a lot of fans were kind of perplexed when the word from the Wild, when this injury happened, or I guess re-aggravation, was that it was part of the healing process. That was kind of the word being put out. Is this something that's actually like, were they planning for these kind of setbacks, or was this pretty unexpected?
Well, I mean, I don't know if planning is the right word. I think that anytime you're coming off 2 major surgeries, you're going to have issues. I mean, I think the Wild fans, I got what Bill Guerin was saying, and I think that anybody that really thinks about it understands that if you have injury, no matter your age, if you have season-ending injuries, you're not just going to come back and miraculously be better. There's going to be times where you feel soreness or stiffness or whatever. So I haven't talked to Spurgeon. I don't know when we'll talk to him, because the Wild do have a rule that if you're not cleared to return, you can't talk to that player. So right now, other than maybe shooting the breeze, I don't think I'll have a full interview with Spurgeon until next week. I don't think that we're allowed. I know that we're not talking to him tomorrow. And again, unless he is cleared to return in Pittsburgh, which I don't anticipate, we're probably not interviewing him in Pittsburgh. So I don't want to put words in his mouth. The only thing I know is that he just woke up in Winnipeg. He wasn't feeling great, some sort of stiffness or soreness, and they didn't want to take any chances, and they sent him back to Minnesota to get seen. For him to get examined by doctors and for them to give him the green light to just let things calm down and then start skating again, and now for him to take the next step to join the team, I think clearly this isn't a re-aggravation. I think he was dealing with exactly what Bill Guerin said.
Fair. All right, 2 quick ones then. Oh, go ahead.
Last one for me. Wrap it up. But our good friend Elliot Friedman wrote his 32 thoughts. Kirill Kaprizov lead to that section regarding playing MVP caliber level. Maybe this could be a Hart season for him, or Hart candidate season. I know I had him 3rd on my ballot a couple of years back. I know you said it's not been a Kirill Kaprizov show. Zuccarello has more goals than him. Other guys have been playing, but I wonder if this might be the year that he gets kind of that attention in the Hart Trophy conversation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are some incredible players right now that are playing in the first 3 weeks of the season, Hart Trophy caliber efforts. 3 of them happen to be Russian. One's Artemi Panarin. One's the guy that you made chug a beer once in a post-game presser, and Nikita Kucherov, and the other's Kirill Kaprizov. And anybody that's around Joe Smith knows that he wants to make you chug beers. So I remember that same Colorado Tampa Bay series. We're in Colorado, and Joe, we both leave the arena at 12:30 in the morning, and we have 6 a.m. flights back to Tampa. And Joe texts me, he's like, "Hey, you want to get a beer?" I'm like, "No, man, we got to leave for the airport in like 3 hours." And I'm like, "No." Anyway, but yeah, I mean, if the Wild make the playoffs, I think he better be on people's Hart Trophy ballot, because these same people that vote are the ones that picked the Wild to finish 7th in the Central, which was completely stupid. I mean, like, that's something that I just can't believe that anybody looks at the Wild and looked at this roster and thought that if they were healthy with Kirill Kaprizov on the lineup, that they were not going to at least be a bubble team to make the playoffs. I mean, he is that good. And as long as he is healthy, he will not let them be a team that's going to be on par with fucking Chicago. I mean, come on. I mean, it's just insane. So that alone, I don't normally get pissed at prognostications, but I think people are just bored with the Wild that predicted them that low. And again, it's early, and I may look stupid for saying that, but as long as Kirill is playing well, this team is a playoff caliber team. And Kirill, even though he only has 2 goals this season, I think he's scored on the ice almost every single game. He's had 4 assists already this season that are just extraordinary assists. I mean, that play to Hartman in St. Louis, the play to Rossi where he steals the puck from Nick Leddy, the play the other night where Zuccarello didn't even move a muscle and just let Kaprizov do all the work and pulled Bobrovsky out of his net. I always find it fascinating too, guys. Like, I didn't write this, but like after the game, Bobrovsky's pulled, and who's the first person that I see in a suit outside the Wild locker room is Sergei Bobrovsky waiting for Kirill Kaprizov, and there Kirill comes out with jersey sticks, and they're trading stuff. It's just amazing how many friends that Kirill has in this league, and not just his countrymen. But here is a bad night for Sergei Bobrovsky. Kirill makes him look like a fool on that one play, and then what does he do? He goes and they're hugging it up after the game. I just think that Kirill is playing outstanding right now. 76 games left in the season, a long way to go.
Yeah, what struck me I did one of my first stories in Minnesota was on Kaprizov and talked to a bunch of superstars in the league about what they see, like McKinnon and Crosby and Kucherov and all that stuff. And it's just amazing how much respect that they have for him in all these different areas of his game. So I think even though he might not be on that, MVP perspective as far as from the voting people the last couple of years, I think the peers in the league see what a unique talent this guy is and why is
Yeah. And Joe, when you come back, I think you're going to be just blown away about how much he's even changed from last year. Like, he is an absolute pleasure to cover right now. He'll start up conversations to shoot the breeze. The other night, we didn't ask for him in Columbus, but I went up to him just to see how well he knew Tarasov, because they're from the same hometown. And he told me this unbelievable story about Tarasov and his dad and all this stuff. In training camp, I wrote it today as the lead to the mailbag, just him talking about what it's like, what a training camp is like in the KHL compared to the NHL. And his English is just extraordinary right now. So, the other night in Florida, cracking jokes about, Zuccarello and him changing roles. So this guy is comfortable in his own skin right now, and is a true star and leader on this team.
We love that. And we appreciate your time, Mike. We'll let you run and go enjoy Tampa as much as you can before Joe starts sending you the Trampled by Turtles video.
No, I will. I'm going to take all sorts of videos and show him what he left for. Like, I made some joke to somebody the other day. I can't believe Joe Smith left for this. And somebody said, "Well, you left South Florida for this." Tampa is not South Florida. Tampa is like this whole area, what Jeff Vinnick and everybody has built. Like, I used to cover the Panthers in the mid 90s and come down here. You couldn't even stay at a hotel down there. You had to stay at the airport Marriott. There was nowhere to eat. There was nowhere to stay. Now, I was talking to John Merrill this morning about just what this whole area has become. It's crazy. And South Florida is one of the worst places. I was so happy to leave there. But man, if the Athletic said to me right now, "Do you want to cover the Tampa Bay Lightning?" I'd be leaving Joe in Minnesota in a second. No, I'm just kidding.
The minute my leave is over, I'm requesting a transfer off the base.
Oh my God, this yacht in front of me. I just want to live on it.
Yeah.
So,
well, thanks again, Mike. Enjoy the rest of the trip. Safe travels, and we'll catch up when you get back.
All right. See you guys.
All right, Joe. Now that we are safely removed from Russo stealing your road trip and you stealing his concert, tell the people, how was the concert?
Concert was great. Trampled by Turtles, my first experience seeing him live, and it was kind of a home show with XL Energy Center with Avid Brothers. And funny how I think Avid Brothers used to open up for them, and now they open up for Avid Brothers. So really good relationship to those bands together. But really enjoyed Thursday night at the X to see them play. I know Russo, I was sending him videos, of course, of the concert, so he could have those. He's seen a million times, so not like he, any lacking in that category. But it was cool to see that the band play, and a lot of my favorite part of the show, quite frankly, was less about the vocals, more about the guys just jamming out in middle songs, the fiddle player and like all the guitar, all the guitar solos, like really jammed out, and a great night. They followed up the Iron Maiden concert from a couple of nights, 30th beforehand, that packed the 7th there downtown. But yeah, it was a fun show, and I know Russo was jealous, but I was also jealous that he got to go to Tampa for a week. It felt like.
Yeah, I'm not the right person to ask, but I'll definitely take Russo's end of that bargain personally. But
yeah. We're heading there. We're heading there soon, so we'll be fine.
Fair enough. Well, again, thank you, Russo, for joining us again, and everyone, make sure, whether it's clicking the link in the description or going to getyourwagon.com, throwing in promo code SP10, go out there, support our good friends. Last segment here, Joe, we have Keyboard Warriors weekly hot take segment brought to you by our friends at Barrel Theory Beer Company. And I am drinking part of the care package, delicious beer. In my opinion, I don't know if you've tried it yet. Did that thing move? I like the cool fire label design. This is actually a collab beer with Ansari's Mediterranean Grill and Lounge, which, no free ads, but that place is freaking awesome. If you haven't been there, Joe, that might have to be like a future meetup spot.
Yeah.
And a Hog, House of Glore. I actually don't know what that is, but sounds great. But tasty, hazy pale ale. Ooh, delicious. But everyone, make sure we got games back at the X now. Look at that. Road trip ends this week. I'll be out there for the Toronto game. If anyone grabs one of the Crowler of the Days out there, section 105, come find me or tag us and send us the pictures. We're all about it. Joe, have you dabbled yet? What's the best one you've had in the package?
I had them all, actually. Well, the one I hadn't had was the mimosa one.
I dropped the wife and kid off, and I went home and I slammed all of them.
Yeah. Well, you dropped them off. I've had the whole weekend to do it, so it wasn't like it was.
No, I know. I'm just giving you shit.
The only one I haven't had was the mimosa combo.
Dude, I'm not a sour guy. That one's really good.
So that's the only one I've missed. But as you know, I'm a big IPA guy. So there were 3 versions of IPA / other pale ale. So
they're all great.
Yeah. Not having any tonight because I have my physical in the morning, so I'm fasting until my blood work's done. Don't want to be loaded up for that one. So, but overall, I did have Barrel Theory when I was at the X on Thursday. So,
my first hot take that I'm just going to add in ad hoc here, Joe. I just think it'd be really fun if you didn't care about spending money and taking an extra doctor visit to just like literally load up, like get drunk, eat a bunch of garbage food, and then go in and have them like test all of your stuff and be like, you fasted? Like, yeah, I haven't eaten in like a day. Like, oh no. And just see how they react. That'd be fun.
See how your blood work and cholesterol and blood pressure would be. That'd be awesome.
Bad.
Yeah.
It'd be so bad. Okay. That's on the bucket list. Actually getting into the hot takes here though. First one is going to be an interesting one because it was a hot take. People were getting upset about it, and it's slowly becoming less and less of a hot take. But Anna Dua I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but host and reporter for Sportsnet said literally like right after we recorded last week, Kirill Kaprizov is a top 5 player in the league. I said what I said. And she was getting absolutely buried, both by commenters that don't live in Minnesota and by her colleagues. Anna might be a bit of an oracle. Maybe we need to get her on a future episode.
Hey, I love people have takes and believe in it. And like Kaprizov, he could be playing like a top 5 player right now. Look at his numbers. Look at the way he impacts the game. Anytime you have to go down that list of ranking players, like ranking best players of all time, it's hard to do that. But, you know, if you look at present day and the way these guys are playing right now, and he's, like I said earlier, like he'll be in the MVP discussion for me. If the Wild make the playoffs in our position, he would absolutely be in that position, you know. And
agreed.
McDavid's the best player in the world. And
but let's put you on the spot here. Like, off the cuff, top 5.
Top 5 players in the world right now.
Right now.
Be McDavid, McKinnon, Kucherov, Makar Kaprizov.
I like that. Oh, I like that. So
I'm sure I missed somebody.
There's plenty of guys that could be argued. So the two that you left off,
Panarin, right? Like Panarin.
Panarin's not even in it for me. Like great player. Like this is why it's like a fun conversation because like there's so many quote unquote right answers. Little side hot take within this hot take. I have thought and continue to think that Cale Makar is the best player in the league. Obviously that's going to irk a lot of people who will go to McDavid, and I completely understand, but with what he does, both sides of the puck, how he completely changes the complexion of a team, that's my guy. But the two that we got to talk through a little bit compared to your list are Matthews and Draisaitl. And it's tough. Like,
yeah.
Now, if we're talking MVP race, I'm putting Kaprizov top 2 or 3 right now. But if we're talking like best player, like if I could have this player on my team, I think Matthews and Draisaitl are the two that I would say edge Kaprizov out and put him like just outside of my top 5.
Yeah.
Now, that said, we'll see. Like he's absolutely not like one where someone would say he's in their top 5 and I'm like, you're an idiot, you know? But
yeah, like it's tough. Matthews is unbelievable player, and like I think all these ones there's like a top 7 or 8 that kind of interchange.
Yeah,
how the season's going, how they're playing. Like Draisaitl didn't start off really well. McDavid just got hurt. Like there's certain ebbs and flows into it, but and positions are so different, right? The sense Matthews is a center versus Kucherov is a winger, and like, but yeah,
I would say Kaprizov is a top 3 winger in the league.
It's fair. I would say that.
Because I'd say the 3 for me, and I'm definitely going to think of some that I'm not even like going for, but for me, it's got to be in no particular order: Kaprizov, Kucherov, Pasternak. That's got to be my 3.
Yeah, just wingers overall.
Is there anyone glaring that you're like, why wouldn't you have said this person? I'm trying to think. I feel like there's someone that people are going to yell at me for on this, and I'm trying to.
Panarin's like, you know, but
I get it, but I'm still taking those 3 over Panarin, no question.
Yeah, like Ovechkin used to be in that conversation.
Like 5 years ago. 6 years ago, maybe. Yeah. Hey, he had 2 goals tonight. Maybe he ended up getting the hat trick. I didn't even see, but good for him.
There's
the one that I know people will scream about if there's any fans of this team listening would be Rantanen.
Yeah.
I still take these 3 over him. I think that's all I got.
Yeah, I'm sure we're missing somebody.
There has to be someone obvious that I'm not thinking of, but
so somebody, hopefully they'll
comment, tell me how dumb I am. That's okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Anna, for that discussion. Next one up is one from yours truly. We were talking about it this weekend, actually, randomly, while we were watching the start of the Philly game. I think the next head coach of the Minnesota Wild will be Mike Sullivan. I think the relationship's already being established there with the Team USA stuff. Obviously, both East Coast guys. But for whatever listeners want to say with like recency bias about who the Penguins are, make no mistake, Mike Sullivan is the reason that the Penguins turned it around and won those back-to-back cups. He was such an undervalued and underappreciated coach for a good 5-year stretch there. I think things have gotten a little stale. I think he's honestly there to keep collecting paychecks. And the second that he gets fired, Billy's going to come right for him. And not legal for them to be discussing this already, but maybe hypotheticals have been discussed over their lunches in Prague. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting point you brought up the other day. And like, I don't hate it or disagree with it in a sense. Like, I think right now, that would take into account Guerin getting a chance to hire another coach after this to see how it goes, right?
Fair.
B, I think we all know how much Sullivan has a lot of love and respect in the organization with Pittsburgh ownership, coach, and GM level. So, but eventually those 10 years end, right? It's a matter of A, will he want to coach again? B, will be in Minnesota. But yeah, it's the connections from the relationship with Guerin is one. Number two, him being a Hall of Fame coach. Why wouldn't you? Depends on where they are in the Wild are in their playoff arc, right? Like
if they're not in that spot in their playoff arc, then you're right. Billy's not here.
So Billy's not here and Sullivan's not coming there. So like,
yeah, fair.
I think
all right, I'm saying that they will be.
If they are, and like, but obviously let's give John Hines a chance here before
I'm not saying that he's replacing him in a week. I'm just saying in the coming years, if Billy Guerin is granted another coach hire, that's who it'll end up being.
Yeah. There'll be worse options.
Well, there are far worse options out there. Last one we have here, and this one's a little bit tongue in cheek, but had to throw it out there as one of our followers, listeners actually tagged me in it to draw my attention to it. Thank you. Jordan Schmaltz, about an hour before or half hour before we recorded, about an hour ago now, says, how am I just finding this out? The Wild logo is a bear? WTF? News to the peoples, and just has a big picture of the Minnesota Wild logo. And as I told you when we started doing this, Joe, once every 6 months, there's someone that pops up and says, holy crap, there's a bear? And it like the internet goes crazy. Half the people are telling them how dumb they are, and half the people are like, oh my God, really? So that until further notice, that will be one of our interview questions.
Well, like, yeah. And like maybe he listened to the interview before with Hendricks and they talked about the bear, or, like, but yeah,
that's how I figured it out.
Maybe that was how it happened. Don't know else what it came from, actually. But yeah, there's apparently a looser interpretation of what it looks like. It is something to everybody differently. So long as it's popular for the Wilds and their jersey sales, they will be happy with it. But yeah, it mixes in with the complicated state that Minnesota is.
That is a fact. All right. Well, everyone, again, make sure you go check out and support our great friends, Barrel Theory, out there on East 7th. Again, it's not a far walk from the X. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't go out there for the pregame or the postgame, or just when you're bored and looking to go out and check out a new brewery. Last thing here, Joe, before we wrap, just because I just saw this pop up, Russo's got a couple of different quotes that he's throwing up from players about Fleury. We just got to read the one from Brock Faber. I have to say, as a young player in this league, there isn't a single guy, probably ever, who could be a better role model for a young player in the league. the person he is, the player he is, his day in, day out habits, the way he treats his teammates, his family, how hard he works. It's just literally the best role model I could have ever asked for. And it's the same with every guy in this locker room. It's a complete honor to be able to share the same sweater as him.
And I'm sure you would be one of hundreds of people who would say that too. But
Right.
Brock Faber is extremely well spoken, and I know he's not very experienced in the NHL of having NHL teammates, right? But it doesn't take long for guys to get that impression from Marc-Andre Fleury, and who better for guys like Faber and Wallstedt and the younger guys coming up to learn from and see. If you want to be a pro, and that's the biggest difference you see from guys coming from junior or college or whatever like that, you know, the whole idea is, oh, how can they become a pro, quote unquote, or how do they learn the league, or how do they survive in the league? How do they excel in the league? This guy is a perfect example. Obviously, he came from being a number one draft pick, so he's not like he's a diamond in the rough and a guy who had to fight his way there. But this guy still acts and plays and behaves like it's his first day in the league. Like, he appreciates the game that much. And I think that's what I think gets lost sometimes for some players who get there too fast, is like they don't appreciate where they are and how hard it takes to get there. And him having Marc-Andre Fleury there, how humble he is, how hardworking he is just a living, breathing example for how you A, stay, B, survive, C, thrive, and then obviously become the top of your profession. So Brock Faber kind of said it best there, and he's only been around him for what, like 100 games, you know? So pretty impressive.
Absolutely is. Nope, it's a testament. Well, I'm sure more and more of those quotes will be pouring out from both the Minnesota and Pittsburgh side of things. Obviously, follow Joe and Russo on the Twitter if you want to catch all of those. Anything coming up, Joe, as we close out here then for The Athletic? I don't know if you know of any stories that Russo's working on, or do we just tell everyone to, hold tight and just, stop reading until you're back from leave? Like, what's the move here?
Yeah, well, there was obviously a good Fleury story by Rossi from our Pittsburgh bureau, and Mike Russo ran today on Fleury, and then he had the mailbag, which usually I'm part of the mailbag, but Russo had 2 mailbag sessions over the weekend, so check those things out. And we'll be at home coming up here soon. So
Crazy.
Against the former team I covered, the Tampa Bay Lightning, coming up here on Thursday or Friday. So a lot of stuff coming. Follow Mike Russo. I will be back eventually writing more other than just doing helping out. So but appreciate all you guys listening and following and hitting us up in the replies and hitting those 5-star reviews. It's been fun. I can't believe it's already been 37 episodes it is now. So pretty wild. So thanks so much for all the support, and looking forward to getting your feedback and what more you want to hear from going forward.
Not weird. Pretty wild. Perfect way to end it. Appreciate all of you guys tuning in again this week. You stay classy. Stay to hockey.